Well, good morning, everybody. Good Saturday morning. I don't know about you, but it's a really sunny, beautiful day here in Indy. Not too cold, not too hot. But today, the weather's not too hot. But what about if your brakes are too hot? We're going to talk about brakes and heat and how to know how much your brakes are heating up, based off of a couple questions we got from the Speed Therapy Society, the Kenny Brown Speed Therapy Society private Facebook group. I got every single word in. So I'm glad you could join me this morning. We're going to talk about this in a little bit. We've got some really good questions that came in from the society. Remember, you can send in questions live. If you have any questions for me, I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. So why don't I move this out of the way for just a minute? There. I shake the whole thing. It's kind of heavy. Okay, so what else are we going to talk about this morning? Well, it's kind of like how hot is hot is the main subject on tech for brake rotors. But also, there's a little piece in here called What's Kenny's Working On. And we've got a pretty interesting project in the shop right now. Andy Redmond has a 69 Boss Mustang, which is a pretty decent car. But he wanted to know if we could do anything about the stiffen up the chassis. And as luck would have it, when we were in Chicago, we prototyped a few chassis pieces for the Gen 1 Mustangs. So we thought, hey, yeah, bring it on in. We'll see where we are on the pieces we built up there. So it's kind of like an R&D project. We can see what we need to maybe modify going forward. And if there's enough interest, we'll bring this product into the fold. And like chassis support's been our number one product since the 90s. We first came out with the double cross subframe connectors, which everybody's copied. We first come out with jacking rails, which everybody's copied. And the matrix system, brace creates the matrix system, and nobody's copied that. I don't know why, because that's the key to creating a stiff chassis. And if as we talk about the Speed Therapy Academy is going on right now, when we're in the chassis section, we're talking about the more rigid the platform, the better the car will perform. And I show pictures of race cars that are just tubes everywhere, tubes and lots of triangulation. I mean, triangles are the key. Triangles are the most rigid engineering shape there is. So we talked a little bit about that, and of course the questions. And the hot. So let me flip over to the page. Okay, so let's we start with? We should start with, these are great questions, and some of these questions are going to lead into what we're going to talk about today. But maybe why don't we start off with the Gen 1 chassis support system? And this is a pretty unique, and a lot of you may or may not know about the matrix system chassis support. And like I say, it's double cross subframe connectors, jacking rails, and the matrix brace. All that together makes the matrix system. So with Gen 1, a little bit different underneath. What we did, the double cross design just wasn't going to work. So this is what we kind of came up with. And this is like, that's kind of like a frame rail. And we go from, let's see, the front, which, kind of slides up over the front subframe, and to the back. And this kind of welds in right where the bolt for the shackle spring would go through here. So that's where it welds on the back. And it's extra hole or for something else we'll talk about in the coming weeks. But this is, it's not that heavy, but it's pretty rigid. And it does an amazing job. I mean, it's like adding a full subframe underneath the car. So that's the inside. Now on the outside, as luck would have it, this is the jacking rail. And as it turns out, this is the same jacking rail that we use on the Fox Mustangs and the S197s. So the same jacking rail for S197 and Fox also works on the Gen 1 Mustangs. So that's kind of handy. Now this is the matrix brace, and it's a little bit different than our other matrix brace. Specifically for this chassis, we had to put a little some hoop-de-doos in it. But the whole concept is, we've got the jacking rail on the outside, we got the subframe on the inside, and when you look at it, we end up with 1, 2, 3, 4 triangulations per side. Remember, I said triangles are the strongest engineering shape, and it really does just like on the all our other Mustangs, the Fox SN95 and S197. It really firms up the middle of the car. Now, when I say stiffen the chassis, some people think it's going to, stiffen the ride. Absolutely the opposite. When you firm up the chassis, it's like all of a sudden you're losing squeaks and rattles, and the platform feels really solid, and the whole ride quality gets better because you're not letting the actual unibody itself become a fifth and unwanted suspension member moving around. When the suspension's moving, if the body's moving with it, suspension's really not doing its job. So when you start rigiding up the chassis, it lets the suspension do its job, and it does amazing. So this is like the kind of like one of the prototypes that we did. If there's enough interest, we will put them back into production. It'll take maybe a month or two, but if you know anybody that might be interested in matrix system for Gen 1 Mustangs, let us know. I think the thing we're going to run into, though, with all these cars that are 50 years old, is nothing's going to be an exact fit. I think anybody that puts it on has to be in their mind thinking that, the car's 50 years old, things have changed. Maybe people have done some work on it, and it's not, the jacking rail will be fine on the outside. The matrix will be okay, but the subframe, you may need to twiddle and tweak with it a little bit, just because 50-year-old cars, they move around a lot. People have replaced the floor pan in some. So, but anyway, it will do an amazing job of firming up the chassis and then also improving ride, taking away squeaks and rattles. So that was our sort of our what's Kenny's working on. It was nice to be able to have like a real 69. It's the Boss 390. So I just can't believe how they squeezed those engines in. I mean, there's almost like no room with the 390 in there, but it's okay. I mean, it's a cool car. So let's moving on to our questions. Let's start with Ben's question. Ben Balmer, he's actually an alumni of the Speed Therapy Academy, and he had a question that he posted up that I kind of answered, but I thought it was a good question to bring into Saturday morning. And his question was, he's converting it's a SN95 to an IRS car. Hey, we like IRS Mustangs. And his question is, are the ring and pinion gears and differential used in the IRS the same as a live axle? Well, the answer is a quantified yes. It all fits, okay? What you have to be aware of is the splines on the axle. If you've got an early IRS, it's going to have the 28 spline differential. And I think the axles on most of the SN95 cars are 28 splines. That would drop right in. It is a 0304 with the Terminator motor. That's going to have a 31 spline. And you can easily get 31 spline axles anywhere. So it will fit. I mean, everything's kind of the same. It's all an 8.8. It's just a matter of, do you have the right axles to work in? So, okay, moving on from there. This is another great question. I like this one. This is from Mike Bowman. It's no secret that the Fox body Mustang has been gaining in popularity in recent years. Given that, have you ever thought about building resto-modded Fox body and applying the knowledge and equipment that has been learned over the past several decades? Think of it as a continuation of the Outlaw Mustang. Well, for those who have not been around for the 30 plus years we've been doing this. Back in the late Fox era, we built a series of cars that were called Outlaws, and they were really cool cars. We did a whole bunch of stuff to them. It had kind of like a small cowl hood, which make them distinguished. But and my entire performance platform: chassis, suspension, wheels, tires, brakes. That's the 5 things that makes my cars great. And so, to answer your question, we're already partially there. Our K member for the SN95 for 94 and 95 SN95 with the Windsor 5-liter, that will fit in a Fox. You have to do a little bit of whittling on a couple places and move a couple lines, but that's all in the instructions what to do, but it will fit. So that's a modern K member, and with good geometry in the front. And of course, that converts it to coilover. And with that, we always would recommend that you go to a 96 and newer spindle from the SN95. You don't want 94 or 95. You want 96 and newer, because the steering geometry is way better 96 and newer. That gives you 5 bolt in the front, and 5 lug in the front, and then the IRS in the back is 5 lugs. So we've got a lot of guys doing that. It's a really, really nifty package. As far as the live axle cars, back in the 80s and 90s, we had a really, really nice rear suspension system. We call it Track Kit Plus, which it had the axle brackets to improve anti-squat, and also had a panner bar to lower the factory roll center. Factory roll center in the live axle car with the double splayed control arms is like way up in the trunk. Now, when I say roll center, that's the back of the car. The car wants to roll around going around the corner, which is why those older cars really kind of do this going around the corner. Well, it's about 17, 18 inches high. It's been a long time since I did geometry. But by adding a panner bar, now wherever the panner bar crosses the center line of the car, that becomes your roll center. So we use the panner bar to defeat the factory roll center, which is really high, and introduce a new roll center at the bottom of the differential, which is where I always put my panner bars, my roll centers at the bottom of the differential. That goes all the way back to the Trans Am days. The Watts link is the best way to locate an axle, but wherever the center pin is your roll center, and you just can't get them down very low. Plus, you have to add a whole bunch of brackets and frames and things like that. In the Trans Am days, we would take a Watts link and mount it horizontal on the bottom of the differential, and that was easy because they had underslung chassis, so that we get the benefit of the Watts with the roll center at the bottom of the diff. Well, we did the same thing in our Track Kit Plus. We moved the panner bar down to the bottom of the differential to bring the roll center down there. Exact same thing we do in the S197s, real low roll center. The problem was after I took many years off for some health stuff, and we started bringing products back. We've not brought back the Track Kit Plus system, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One, it worked really, really well, but it really turned into one of those, I'm going to say, kind of pain in the butt for us, because back then there was a whole bunch of different exhaust systems, and anybody that's got a Fox SN95, you look under the back, there's very little real estate to work with. And what would happen is we had, I think, 5 different frames for the panner bar, depending on which exhaust system you had. And we would engineer it so that the exhaust system fit, no problem. But we have people in the field, when they install it, they'd complain that the bracket for the panner bar was hitting the exhaust. In reality, the exhaust was hitting the bracket. And it was really hard to make them understand that they need to do a little different installation on that so it doesn't hit. And you have to add a lot of extra room, because people don't realize that when exhaust systems get hot, they expand, they grow, they get bigger. When things get hot, they get bigger. So that was one thing. The other thing is because we're using it for roll center and not axle location, not lateral location on the axle. It has to be, the panner bar has to be set at ride height on the ground with like at least a half a tank of gas in it at zero preload, which means you need to be able to slide a bolt in and out without any problem, zero preload. What we would do is people wouldn't read the instructions, and they would not have the panner bar adjusted correctly. So what would happen is the panner bar would be either pushing or pulling on the differential. Well, the control arms were trying to center it. So they'd be constantly fighting against each other. When you start creating load and stress, something's got to give. So those are the two things. I mean, it was a great product, but it came down to, let's say, the end user became sort of an issue. My plan is, well, right now, we're working with a lot of guys putting the IRS in the Fox SN95s. I mean, that's really cool. Maybe in a year or so, my plan is to do a bolt-in, a brand new bolt-in 4-link for the Fox SN95. Don't get excited. It's at least a year away. With obviously the same geometry we're running in the S197 right now, which is amazing, and also a double wishbone for the front. A long time ago, I did one for a friend of mine. Back when I was still struggling with some health stuff. In 03, 04, we partnered with Ford Racing on a double wishbone SLA that was going to be a bolt-in for S197. This was like before the S197 came out. And the Ford Racing, they lost a lot of budget. So Dan Davis said, why don't you just take and finish it yourself? So I worked with Buddy Fay, a race car engineer I know, and Quicker CAD up in Detroit. And we developed a bolt-in SLA for the 197s that actually has front geometry that mirrors the late Riley J and Pratt & Miller Trans Am cars. So it's pretty cool. That has been sitting on a shelf for years and years and years. We're actually going to start working on that again. But again, that's many months off. But once we get that done, way back, I think maybe 2008, 2009, Steve Post came to me. Actually, his dad, Jim Post, came to me, who's passed now, which is a shame because he was a really good guy. And they wanted a better suspension. So we tried to, a friend of mine who used to be a fabricator at Riley and Scott, the race car company. We tried to adapt the S197. I had like 3 prototypes. I went ready to adapt the SLA from the S197. SLA, by the way, stands for short long arm. That's a double wishbone where the upper arm is shorter than the lower arm. So if you're wondering what SLA is. Anyway, there's no way we could get it to fit. So what we did is I recalculated. I had all the dimensions and measurements for the suspension. So what I did is, I spent a day and took all my numbers and recalculated, and I ended up drawing on the floor with a Sharpie the suspension. And next to each point, I wrote the elevation, from the floor. I calculated how far up I had to be from the floor, and it's just built the thing in midair, and it worked like a dream. There is an extra set of parts still, I believe, for that up in Chicago. And at some point, I need to get up and get them. I hope they're still there. So that's we're talking a year away for a double wishbone and a bolt-in 4-link for the back, because the IRS parts are getting pretty thin. So I hope that answers your question. It's been playing on my brain for a long time. I wanted to do a real suspension for Fox SN95 for years and years and years. It's just we're getting close to being able to do it, but like I say, we've got a couple of projects ahead of it. And then also the SLA and the 4-link, the bolt-in 4-link, we're also going to adapt to Gen 1 Mustangs and the SLA for the front. So there are some big projects I got lined up. They're down the road though. We only can do a couple things at a time. We just spent a whole bunch of years developing and testing the K-Link, which we brought to market here recently, which is the most amazing rear suspension in the world. So anyway, that's kind of like the answer for your Fox question. Here's another good one. Gavin Wheeler, is it worth rebuilding a 4.6 3-valve engine, or should I swap it out for a 5-liter Coyote in an early body S197? Well, you can do either one. It basically boils down to what's your budget? Are you doing it yourself? Are you having somebody else do it? And the time you have to invest in it. like just dropping in Coyote is not as easy and simple as saying, yeah, we'll drop in. But you have to also consider you're going to need the controller unit to go with it. And I've never done this, so I'm just kind of working off the top of my head. Somebody out there may have more information on this than me. But then you have to think about, okay, how do we integrate the processor and the electronics of the Coyote processor into the dash on the early S197, and then you've got to get headers and I don't think that the Coyote motors, I think they're like around 10, 11 grand, and then the controller pack is $2,800. So right there, I mean, you're in probably just starting out into it like 15 grand for parts. And then, I mean, the whole bunch of other stuff I'm sure I'm missing that you have to get to adapt the Coyote to it. And then, you want to use the same transmission, get a different transmission, all kinds of, you have to think the whole project through and, you put pencil to paper and figure out what it's going to cost. But it is possible. It's just, you just want you to be aware of the things. You don't just, grab one and stick it in. You have to think the whole process through. Like I say, if you've got a project, think of the end and then work backwards of all the steps you have to do until you get back to the beginning, so it works out. Now, the other thing you can do, which is pretty easy, is we just did this to Cliff Glidden's 2008 Ford Racing FR500S, the race cars that were in the Mustang Challenge. It's unique. He's in Reno, but this happens to be one of the cars I engineered in the Mustang Challenge in 2009 and 10. And what we did is we upgraded his car to 2011 World Challenge specs. At the end of 2010, the Mustang Challenge ceased to exist, but the SCCA allowed the FR500S into the World Challenge GTS class, but they allowed some updates. The Boss Mustangs had to run pretty much as they were, but for for FR500S, they could run my AGS 4.0 suspension, which is a big plus. Plus, Ford Racing had a power upgrade, and it consisted of heads, intake, cam, throttle body. Okay, now you already had headers on the car, so the heads that Ford used to make are no longer available. So I went to my friends at Livernois up in Detroit and got a set of, they've got for the 3 valves, they've got a stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So it wasn't a full-on race car, and stage 1 just wasn't warm enough. So I went for a stage 2 cylinder head porting, and they do just a beautiful job. If you ever need some cylinder head work done, get a hold of Livernois or get a hold of me, and I'll tell you who to talk to up there. So anyway, we did that, and to be consistent with the Ford upgrade, so this was sort of retain the integrity of the car, we used the Ford hot rod camshafts. Now there's better camshafts out there than that, but we wanted to stick to the official package that Ford had. That Ford's got a really nice intake for the 3 valves and a bigger throttle body, and pretty much didn't touch the bottom end. Oh, we did, because the heads are off and the timing chains are off, which we always replace. We put in a billet oil pump, which anytime you've got the front off of a modular car, you want to stick a steel billet oil pump in there. Anyway, I mean, that was kind of like not a lot of work, not a lot of effort. And plus then everything hooks up the same, everything plugs in the same. We went to the dyno and we worked with Tony at HP Tuners. We actually do our dyno tuning remotely. We're on the dyno, and Tony is either in Chicago or Florida or whoever he may be. And we work back and forth. And what we ended up with is there's like 381 rear wheel horsepower. And if you do the math, that's like 440, which is pretty close to what I think the Boss motors were 444. So, I mean, that's a pretty hefty increase. The new Coyote motors are, 460 horse. I think the Boss motors, the Gen 1 Coyotes were 440, 444. And with just what I described, we were at 380 rear wheel, 440 at the crank. with a little better camshaft, we easy would have been 450. So, I mean, just a couple of ways to look at it. I mean, if you want to talk about it more and deeper, please sign up for one of my 15-minute consults. I'll be more than happy to talk to you about it and give you more detail of what we did on Cliff's car, because it turned out really, really well. I mean, the engine is smooth as silk. It pulls like crazy. Here's a dyno, and you can actually see how smooth the dyno curves are. I mean, both the torque and the power, just smooth and linear. I mean, the car pulls like a freight train. So, I mean, yes, you can put the Coyote in, but I want you to think about all the other things you have to get with it and what you have to do to adapt it to the chassis. So that's that. I hope that was helpful. That was Gavin Wheeler, by the way. And Gavin, if you need more information, please give me a call. And the other things you have to think about if you're going to a Coyote, your 3-valve has like a 6-bolt crank. Coyotes have an 8-bolt, so then you also have to get a clutch and flywheel. So I mean, there's just tons of little things you have to consider. So anyway, that's my opinion on that. This is from Jerry. I have a 2014 197. Purchased our jacking rails. Good for you. You're going to love them. I put the Roush side splitters on. Will this affect the installation of the jacking rails and how the car will sit on jack stands? I don't want to damage the side splitters. Okay, Rich is a better person to ask this to, but my understanding, we just did one of these not too long ago. Brian from the Speed Therapy Academy, he brought in his 427 Roush, and we put the full AGS 4.5 suspension on it, and the matrix system, and he had the side splitters. And I believe the side splitters are outside the pinch weld, and the jacking rail goes on the pinch weld to the pinch weld. And I think there's like spaces where maybe the OE jack would go in there, the jack the car up, and I think the jack stands would fit right there. So I believe the answer is yes, because we've done it, but I wasn't under the car, and Rich would be a better person to ask that question to. But yeah, and go ahead and put them both on. So let's see, we've got, now we're going to get to Rob and Bill on rotor temperature. Okay, this is Rob's question. Now, if you've been with me a while, you know I'm always talking about knowing what your rotor temperature is, so that you can match up the brake pad compound. It's really important that your brake compound is matched up to your rotor temperature. That's how they're going to work the best. If you got rotor temperatures higher than the compound was designed for, the wear factor is going to be really high. You're going to wear them out really fast. If you've got a compound that is higher than what your rotor temperature is, then what's going to happen is the brakes aren't going to work that well. They'll probably squeal, and they just won't have a good grip. We had that firsthand experience. We had a gentleman I was talking to from New York or Connecticut, I believe, and he had a GT500 that he was putting on track, and we were helping him with it. And I said, well, we've got these really great brake pads, these G-Lock brake pads, which I can get pre-bedded for you, so you don't have to bed them. And he said, I tried them, and they don't work at all. I said, well, what compound did you have? And the compound he told me was the absolute top-end race pad. Okay, I mean, it works to 2,100 degrees. The lowest temperature is like 600. So you really need to have, for a brake pad like that, you really need it to be the 1,1600 temperature range. And he said the same thing. He said they make noise, it didn't stop very well. Well, the person that sold them to him had no idea, had no concept of brake pads, and he just thought, well, it's a GT500. I'll give him the biggest, best race pad, and it doesn't work. He needed to be 3 compounds down from that race pad. So anyway, that's why you have to match. But the only way to really know, but if you call me, I I can talk to you about that. My car typically ran with brake ducts. Now, remember, brake ducts are important if you're going on track. My car typically ran about 1,200 degrees on the rotor temperature. So that's why I keep talking about rotor temperature. And without brake ducts, I would have been 1,600 degrees easy. So brake ducts are really important. They help keep temperature under control, which means the brakes work better, the brake pads last longer, and your rotors last longer. So it's all good things. So, but getting back to his question, can you use temperature melting crayons to determine rotor temperature? The crayons are used in welding to determine the temperature of metal when metal needs to be preheated. Different colors melt at different temperatures. I was wondering if I could mark 3 veins with 3 different colors to determine my temperature, or maybe mark the back of the pads. Okay, forget about the back of the pads. You know, you don't want to know what the back of the pad temperature is. You want to know what the temperature of the pad against the rotor is. Now, I don't know what the heat ranges are on those crayons, and if they melt, will they get on the rotor and get on the pads? What we use is rotor temperature paint. Now let me pull my handy dandy display up here. Now this is one of our bare brake packages, and what we use is rotor temperature paint. And the nice thing about it is just one color. You can see, you paint it on, and you don't want to put your crayons on the veins. You want to put them on the rotor itself, not the veins, because the veins are going to be a lower temperature than the outside, and that's where you want to know what's the temperature right here. What's that temperature between the rotor and the brake pad? And the nice thing about it is, goes on. That's the color it goes on as, but as it goes through different heat cycles, you can see that it changes colors. Okay, and the different colors are actually I had it upside down. Okay, now it's the first one is the high is at the bottom. The low goes up to 687 Fahrenheit. The second, the red brown, goes to 804. What color is that? The brown goes to 1074. The yellow green goes to 1326, and that's typically where my rotors are. And then the green goes up to 1470, and then the beige is above 1471. So if your crayons are good between, I'm going to say 900 and 1400 degrees, you can use them, but they have to be on the outside. And my concern is if they melt, they get on the rotors. I mean, I don't know that much about them. I'm just making guesses. So the better would be to use brake rotor temperature paint. It's it's got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different temperature ranges, and I'm not sure what temperature ranges your crayons are at. So while we're thinking about rotor brakes and rotors, just a couple more tips. You'd be surprised how many times we get cars and the rotors are installed backwards. We had one customer with a boss that somebody was working on his car that honestly just wasn't very good, and he kept burning up brakes. Even though he had brake ducts, he kept burning up brakes. So he brought it in to get that and a whole bunch of other things fixed. And sure enough, the rotors were on backwards. Okay, and because of that, they don't cool. Now a rotor cools from the inside out, and the vanes are always pointing backwards. They're just pointing outwards. And when you have a slotted rotor, remember, never, ever, never, ever, ever, ever use drilled rotors. I unconditionally, 120% guarantee that they will crack at the holes. Absolutely guaranteed. No question about it. That's why we only use slotted rotors. Slotted rotors do 2 things. One, they help clear brake dust. And secondly, they help relieve the gas pressure that builds up between the rotor and the brake pad at the trailing edge of the brake pads. When brakes get really hot, they'll build up they'll build, if there's no place for the gas to go, they'll build up at the back of the pad, and the pads will wear unevenly. Back when we were doing the Celine cars, we had to run stock rotors, which were smooth, no grooves. And, we run 24-hour races. We do maybe 2 brake changes. And every time we pull the brakes off, the front of the brake pad was just, starting to touch the metal, and the back it was still half a pad in the back. That's because the gas pressure built up in the back. Well, you got these handy slots, and that relieves that pressure. The other thing that is important to know is these slots should always place forward. Okay. Yeah, a lot of people think it's racy. They should point backwards, but no, they need to paint face forward. So the thing is that, and you can tell if you go and you can feel the road, see that the vane is going this way. Okay, so if you're going forward, if these slots are going forward, it's going to help vent, because you always want to get air to the eye of the rotor, which is right here, because they cool from the inside out. Now, our brake ducts, I don't have one here, but my brake ducts are pretty unique. It's a 3-inch squash down, so that 100% of the air goes into the eye of the rotor, so they cool better than like a 4-inch brake duct. Even though you think a 4-inch brake duct would be better, it doesn't cool as well as my 3-inch, because all the air goes into the eye of the rotor. With a 4-inch brake duct, half the air goes into the eye, half the air hits the face of the rotor, so you end up with 2 different temperatures, outside and inside. So that answers the other question, Bill's question that goes into that is kind of use an infrared barometer to measure brake rotor temperature, or a brake probe that is a tire barometer. Yes, you can use them, but it's only going to tell you the temperature that the rotors are at. And more than likely, they have cooled down quite a bit. The temperature you want to know is, what is the peak temperature under braking? What's the hottest the rotors get to? And if you watch Daytona or Le Mans at night, you can see the brake rotors glowing bright red. Well, they're going from one temperature way up to bright red, and then they cool back down. Well, if you use it like an infrared or a barometer, you're not going to find out what peak temperature is. I mean, this is the best way to find out what your peak temperature is with rotor paint. Okay. Did I get through everything? Yeah, I think I got through absolutely everything on my list of questions, and we talked about the matrix system for the Gen 1 Mustangs. So I guess now we can turn to your questions if you have any. I don't know if we've got any questions or not. I was kind of rattling on, but I think I hit everything on the list.
Sure, there's a couple questions, Kenny, but first I have to add my few little tidbits. So wanted to let everybody know that this is, especially newcomers, that this is simulcast live on the Kenny Brown Performance Facebook page, the Kenny Brown Speed Therapy Facebook group, as well as Kenny's YouTube channel, the Kenny Brown Performance YouTube channel. So if you, there's lots of people viewing from different areas. So join us.
Hey, you know what, Carrie?
What?
I think I forgot to say, this is Cars and Coffee with Kenny Brown in the beginning.
And I didn't catch you either.
So yeah, it's bad on both of us.
Do you want to say that right now?
I'm Kenny Brown, and this is Cars and Coffee, where I take about an hour or so to answer your questions and talk a little tech and try to share some of my extensive knowledge of 50-some years of doing this and a lot of years in professional motorsports. I've won a lot of national championships too in racing, so I got a little bit of knowledge, but I share what I can. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell you. I know a lot, but I don't know everything. And when it comes to answers, if I don't know the answer, I just tell you I don't know the answer. I've got like an engineering brain, so that whole BS thing, my head doesn't work that way. So what you get is like real information. So with that, now can we talk about questions?
Oh, no, of course not. I have to gab a little bit. So a couple things to share. First of all, if you like what Kenny's sharing, let's see some love. Let's give him some thumbs up click on the little button if you're in either Facebook or on the YouTube channel. So let's see some love for Kenny. Also, Kenny, I don't know if you know about this yet, but Kenny is over the holiday season. We both Christmas and New Year, since it kind of lands on the holiday, we're going to be doing something different. We're going to be Kenny's going to be doing his top 10 tech tips for the year for 2021. So if you have a tech tip that you think should be on that list, especially all the people that show up all the time, I'll list a few of them here that I know are here. Steve Hansford, Dave Robinson from Niagara, yay, you're always here. Joe Johnson, Kobe Ward, Roy Merrick is always here. Steve Smith, Fred Francher never misses anything. He's from Louisville, Kentucky. So we have a lot of people, and if I haven't mentioned your name, I apologize. Also, Calvin Goring. So if any of you people that listen every week, if you want to just put in the comments below what you think he should include in his top tips for 2021, that would be appreciated. So with that, we can go to questions, Kenny.
Okay.
And I just need to get back to my place. I need an assistant, I think. There we go. Steve Smith, I do have an assistant. I consider putting a Coyote in a 2016 S197 V6, but after doing the research, I decided to sell it, and I purchased a 2012 GT. That was a good choice, Steve, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you can, swap them out, but here's the thing. When you if you just get like an 11 to 14 with a Coyote, you get a couple of things. Like one of the big things you get is a bigger ball joint in the front. Like for our front grip kits, 197s, we do not make control arms for the 5 to 10 cars, just simply because they have a smaller 18 millimeter shaft on the ball joint. And when we run the extended ball joint to bring the roll center up, it puts a lot of load on it. So we no longer build those. We only build the 11 to 14 control arms with the larger 19 millimeter shaft on the ball joint. So what we have is people with the early cars, just go out to, scour the salvage yards or eBay and come up with a set of spindles, and they fit. I mean, there's no problem. Everything fits. And then you get a much bigger ball joint. So that's one of the advantages for the 11 to 14s, among many. Plus, those Coyote motors are just so cool. I just think that's probably the best engine Ford's ever put out. And then the newer ones keep getting better and better. But even so, even the early ones, like the Gen 1s in the 11 to 14s, I had a 2012 GT that was my track car. It was a GT4 RS, wicked fast. I mean, it was wicked fast, and it was like, I keep telling people: chassis, suspension, wheels, tires, brakes. I had my full suspension. I had really great JRZ shocks and great big Kenny Brown Bear brakes on it, and a little bit of aero. And I mean, I would chase. I mean, GT 500s, a track like Road America, which is a really, supposedly a horsepower track. GT 500s down the straight, like between 3 and 5. I just go past them. I'd fly past them because I carried so much more speed in the corners. I had better exit speed. My foot was down. I carried speed. It was faster. So, but I mean, and the only thing I did the engine. Okay, the first engine we had a problem with, and I happened to have some friends at Ford, so I got one of the engines that were gone into the Boss S cars, and there was nothing special about them. They were just an engine, a 302, a Boss 302 motor out of production. So I put that in. So it was just a little newer Coyote, cold air kit, headers, exhaust, and a tune. And, it was like 440 to the ground, which is, you do the math, that's over 500 horsepower. But even so, I mean, just cold air headers and a tune and a really great suspension. Remember, chassis, suspension, wheels, tires, brakes. and that car was just blazing fast. I mean, blazing fast. People would be surprised. We got one video out there somewhere at Road America where turn 14 is the last turn before the uphill, the long straightaway up the hill. And I was closing in on a Viper, and I actually had to back out of it a little bit for fear of running into the Viper in the middle of the corner. So I backed out, and then when he got clear, I put my foot back down again, and I carried so much more exit speed off the corner that Viper never caught me all the way down the straightaway. And we've got it documented in video. And it's also in that same tape. We also put another little clip in there where I totally outbraked a Porsche GT3 RS. And that was an older one. Okay, I want to quantify that. Full disclosure, it was an older Porsche, but nevertheless, there's I must have come from 5 car lengths back going into turn 5, and before we got the apex, I was in his trunk, and I always use my brakes in track days to intimidate people, because if you can come from way back, because the braking capability of my GT4 suspension with rear grip kit, front grip kit, good springs and shocks, and good brakes. The braking capability is just phenomenal. And I would do that in track days. Now in racing, your best opportunity to pass is under braking, which is why I focus so heavily on braking in the design of my suspensions. But in this one, I would come, if people were pesky, I'd lay way back, like on a long straightaway, and going into a sharp corner, I would just, close way down and just like be right there in all 3 mirrors. By the time they hit the apex, they get flustered and just let me by. So in racing, we use it to gain an advantage and pass people. At track days, I use it to intimidate the guys that won't get out of my way. Okay, I got kind of off on a long subject there. So let's get back to questions.
Okay, so Steve Smith, can you give a rough idea when the front SLA suspension for the S197 will be available to purchase?
I'm going to say we got the big thing we need to do is the biggest part of the next phase of development. I have a fixture for the frame for the K member. The control arms are pretty simple to make. The thing that is the complexity is the spindle. Now the SLA was engineered as a race suspension, based off of Trans Am cars. So the way it turned out is the spindles were built just like you would for an Indy car or a Trans Am car. Maybe 18, 20 pieces of really, really thin steel, all TIG welded together, and they make an extremely strong and rigid and light spindle. And then we have, what we did is the bearings on the 197s are always suspect, especially if you have a bad habit of running across curves or alligator teeth. So we have a bearing pack on there. That's, the bearing and the hub just bolt right on, and it's rated for armored cars and everything else. It's really difficult. It'd be difficult to put that product into production without having a huge price tag on it. If you can imagine what it would take to sit down and TIG weld 18 little pieces of steel into a finished product. So our next step is we need to get together with an engineer who can draw it up, and we need to convert that to a billet, an aluminum billet, so they're much easier to produce. And we've got machining centers that can just spit them out. So that's kind of like the net. Once we get past that, I'm guessing I'll do some updates. I'm guessing maybe 6 months, maybe by spring. If fingers crossed, if things go really, really well. Maybe in a couple of weeks, I'll show you guys some pictures of the originals. And when we get close, when we get the spindle figured out, I'll show you guys some pictures so you can kind of get an idea of what it is. But it's racy. This is real race car stuff. So yeah, it's sooner than it would have been last year at this time. Let's put it that way. But as in, we've got a body in here. We've got the suspension mocked up. It's just a matter of getting time with our manufacturing partners to see when they can start working on the spindle. So yeah, I would really like to have this come out by spring, because that matches our AGS 4.5, the rear grip kit with my patented K-link at the back, and that whole system together becomes AGS 5.0, or the 5th generation of my advanced geometry suspension systems that go all the way back to the Celine days in '86 and '87.
Well,
So
this
I have no idea how badly I want to get this done, so I'm working on it.
Well, this question ties in pretty well, Kenny. But before I say that, there's lots of nice tech tips coming in. Again, Kenny's going to be talking about the top tech tips that he's offered in 2021. So if you want to add something that you think should go on his top 10, please put it in the comments area. Here's Dave Robinson on the subject of the Restomod Fox bodies. Would the AGS 4.5 system fix the Fox? No doubt some adjustments would be needed.
The answer is, that's my intent. Okay, when we do the bolt-in 4-link, it's going to have the same geometry as we have in the S197, and I want to be able to put the K-link on the back with that. So yeah, I mean, need to get the front SLA we need to get done first, and then we're either going to do the bolt-in 4-link for the Fox SN95 or for Gen 1 Mustangs. It just kind of depends on where the market seems to be and where the most interest is. But they're all in line to come out here. I mean, I've got, you look what's out there, and I mean, I'll be honest, I know what's out there in the market, and there isn't anybody that can match the suspensions I build. I mean, I've been doing this for so long. I mean, I have made so many mistakes, when you're learning this stuff, when I was younger, learning all this stuff, it's all trial and error, and, mostly error. But, when you screw up, that just tells you what not to do next time. So I always look at when I don't get something right, is that still I learned something and still move forward. So, and I've been working on geometry, specifically on suspension geometry, since '86, '87 Celine cars. So that's why I think I've got really good suspension systems.
Okay, we have a few.
Got off on my little tangent again.
We have a few questions left, but I wanted to, so put your questions in the comments for Kenny to answer live. Robert Bowman says, what kind of mods can you make for a 4.6 3-valve to get more low RPM power for autocross?
Depends on, how much, what do you consider low RPM power? I mean, what we did to Cliff's car, let's see, RPMs. I mean, at 4,000 RPMs, we're at about 250 horsepower, but more importantly, we're at about 330 torque. And it's not, if you're thinking about autocross, forget horsepower, okay? You want to be more interested in torque. In the professional racing ranks, there's a saying that horsepower sells engine, torque wins races. So you want to be focused on is torque. You want to get more torque at the bottom end. And what we did the Cliffs car, I mean, it's like 300 pounds of torque from 2,500 to about 3,800, and then it jumps up to 340 in torque. So the torque curve, I don't know if you can, let's see, the torque curve is a flat one. The one that kind of goes up, that's horsepower, but what you want to know is torque. That's the torque curve of the modifications we made. Now, along those lines, if you got a good engine builder, there are certain camshafts that would be better for low-end torque. And the other thing, too, you can adjust cam timing by a degree or two to move your entire torque curve down. So, I mean, the same things we did, that's pretty darn good torque. I mean, 300 pounds from 2,500 on up is pretty good. So it's like, if you're looking for improved performance in autocross, you want to look at torque. What's the torque curve look like? Okay, do we have another question?
Yeah, we have another one, just a comment in here. But first I want to mention, I'm pushing this tech tips. What I'm looking for is what you learned from Kenny. What was the top thing you learned from Kenny this year that you think he should share with other people? I guess that's sort of how I should have phrased the question. So add this to the comments. We were getting some good ones in here. Joe Johnson is a long one, but he has a comment. He says, looking forward to seeing Kenny's building 1970 Mustang with his front and rear grip kit K-Link and front SLA. It would be a lightweight car, which would be fast and handleable with 580 horsepower Coyote. There'd be very few cars that could stay with him. Joe, that is so true.
Yeah, except I'm going to put a caveat in there. I mean, in those older cars, I know Coyote, Coyote, that's what everybody does. But, I still like the Windsors. I mean, I started working on Mustangs and Windsors, and you can do so much with them anymore. I mean, you can get a 363 small block, like based on the 302 block, 363 and 500 horsepower. I mean, you can just buy them right off the shelf. And the thing is that Coyote motor, I mean, the Windsor is so much more compact than the Coyote. Plus, they make a whole bunch more torque. So, I mean, if somebody wanted a Coyote, I'd do that. But I just, for those older cars, I just love those Windsors. Well, we did like for David's AIX car out in California. He wanted something different. He's a 2012 or 13 Mustang. He's got a full AGS 4.5 with the JRZ. Oh, actually, he's got JRZ Motorsport shocks on it because this is a full-on race car. And what I did for that is I had Wagner up in Wisconsin, Wagner Race Engines, built an all-aluminum 351 stroked at the 408. And it dry sump, and it's like 650 horsepower, 580 on torque. I mean, it's going to be a monster motor. And, being all aluminum, it's going to be probably lighter than a Coyote. I don't know that for sure, just my guess. But it's kind of like he sent me pictures. And you put a Windsor motor in an S197, and it looks lost. And that's how I was like, where's the motor? So anyway, it's the earlier cars. I mean, you get really nice 337s, 363s. I mean, that's what I would do. I just kind of like them. But, Coyote's still okay too. Illuminator with what they are, about 5-something horsepower. I mean, that'd be pretty snappy. So, yeah, I mean, it's like I got a lot of people who would like to see this happen. The thing that would speed it up is having more significant interest, like people that would either want to get involved or put a deposit down. We always go in the direction of market demand. So we ever had some people that were really interested in that. That would make that project go a little quicker. So.
Okay, so this is last call for any questions you have. I can't believe it's the end of the hour. I thought you'd only go a half hour today, Ken. You know how to gab.
Once I get going, I get going.
You sure do. We have another couple of questions here, but just wanted to remind you about the 15-minute, to schedule a 15-minute consult with Kenny. It's free. He shares a lot of information. If you have a specific questions that you don't know how to get through, just schedule a 15-minute and he'll talk through that with you. Also, he can help you put together a build plan, what to do next, how to build your car specifically for how you're using it. So
let me get back to Joe for a second because I'm thinking a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you know anybody with a 69 or 70 Mustang that would like to get involved in the AZS 5.0 system on the car, because it's like the entire system from the 197s. We're going to like transfer the double wishbone in the back, the 4-link with a K-link in the back and the double wishbone in the front, and also we're going to carry over our Kenny Brown Bear brakes, our shock package, wheel and tire package. So it's basically going to be an S197 a double wishbone S197 underneath the 6970 Mustang, which I think is going to be way cool. But if you know anybody that might be interested, have them get in touch with me. The reason we're starting with 6970s is because what I really want to do is build some 6970 Trans Am spec racer. Okay, did you get that? As track cars and also for SVRA. That'd be 6970 Trans Am spec racer. They had that full. Instead of the street brakes, they get our Pro 4R race brakes, race shocks, and then what we're talking about is engines in like the 400 cubic inch range, 500 plus horsepower. And the reason I want to go to 400 cubes is if we get a bigger motor that's got more torque, we don't have to wring the neck of it to make a lot of power, and the engines will last longer. So you get more than a season out of it. So anybody that might be interested in a Trans Am spec racer, either for track days or for SVRA, hook them up with me and we'll talk.
Okay, we also have Bill Haney's in the group, Kenny. He's one of our current Speed Therapy Academy members. Hey. And let's see, we also have, I'm just going to go through a couple tech tips, and then we have another question here from Kobe. Again, if you have any, this is last call for any questions that you may have. Let's see. So this is just a couple of them. One of the, which I thought was interesting, tech tip number one for me was have a build plan.
Yeah, that's really important. I mean, and when I talk about all the things like in the academy and the workshops, when you want to do performance on your car, you need to have a plan. And by a plan, you need to, what I tell people is, where do you want to be? Where do you want the project to end? Of course, things like never really end. But where would you like to see, sort of like the end result? And then you have to just plan backwards from that, because the worst thing you want to do is just throw parts at it. And then when you want to make an upgrade, well, crap, I got to throw this away, put something else on. So if you know where you're going to be and you work backwards, and I can help you with that, then you're adding things that keep making the package better, and so you don't have to work backward and move backwards. You're always moving forwards. So yeah, I mean, a build plan is really, really important.
And Tim Thomasak, hi Tim. Tim has a tech tip that he thought was important. What to measure and adjust when at the track.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yep, that's a really good one. And we also have, I thought we had, and Colby Ward, that's his question, I think. I'm losing it right here. I'll find another one. But anyway, Colby Ward says, for the autocross cross torque question, possibly a gear change might help?
Sure. I mean, it's just, you need to just try. You have to be careful when you're choosing your gears. If you go too low, then you might actually lose traction because there's too much of a mechanical advantage. It's just a matter of, depending on the type of courses you run on, you sort of have to find that happy medium where you got really great acceleration, but don't have too much of a mechanical advantage through the lower gear ratio that you're just spinning the tires all the time. So yeah, I mean, that you can do it with gears too. I mean, it's like anything else. If you've got a specific application, you have to think about it. You have to plan. And what I tell people, before you make any change, like in a track car, autocross car, a street car, before you make any change, be sure that you are looking for a specific outcome. Okay, because the worst thing people do is somebody else did this, so I'm going to do it. That guy did something else, I'm going to do it. I mean, you need to be thinking about, you're making a change. What is the outcome that I'm looking for? What result do I want to see? So if you're looking at gears, take a look at the gears you've got, and then do some math. Maybe not go too deep in gears. I mean, you just got to come to the point. Unfortunately, it's like anything else, trial and error. I mean, engineering race cars is trial and error. If once I've done it so much that I can make a couple adjustments at the same time. But it's like years and years ago, it was trial and error. Try this, and what was the result? I'd write it down in my notebook. Remember notebooks? Write it down in my notebook, whether it worked or didn't. And you get to the point where you get things working. So anything like that, again, is trial and error. And you need to trial and error for your application and your car and your driving style.
Okay, and so Steve Duvall here. Hey, Kenny, do you remember Steve? He used to work, be mechanic for us back in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, he says the best tech tip for him was I ever learned from Kenny was document everything, every change you make. He mentioned it a few episodes back, but this year, but he taught me that in the early 90s. So, and then Joe Johnson.
You can see, and that's something, again, I learned years and years ago doing my own cars. And it's because I would, back in the 70s, I was just, young and excited and just really ready to go. And I make changes and do things on the race cars. And it's like, I wouldn't remember what I did. So I actually, started, writing things down in notebooks. Because if you make a change or you do something on your car at the track or autocross or even on the street, and you think you're going to remember it later, you won't. I guarantee you won't. So yeah, you write everything down.
Okay.
Thanks for kind of piping in on that.
Okay. Then here's Joe Johnson. The best tip for me was Kenny showing me what I was doing wrong when entering a curve, using the whole track with late braking and getting more speed after exiting the curve. Yeah,
I mean, it's like real speed it's all about corner exit speed, because the faster you exit the corner, the faster you will be at the end of the straightaway. It's just plain and simple. That's how I blow past GT500s at Road America. Coming off turn 3, I mean, I've got, I do a really late apex and my foot is down. I'm carrying a lot of mid-corner speed and a big corner exit speed. With the GT500s, because they're so heavy, they're not as quick to the middle of the corner. And then because they got so much torque, they can't put their foot down or they light their tires up. So they sort of have to wait till the axle settles and then, feather the gas until they get about halfway down the straightaway before they can put their foot down. By that time, I'm gone. So, yeah, I mean, it's like late brake, good rotation, get on the gas soon, get on the gas before the apex, and get good drive off the corner. And, I mean, that's the quickest way to pick up lap times.
Okay, and then just a real quick shout out to Dan Neve. He's joining us again. He had a very busy summers. As many people know, he is the founder of Cruise for a Cause. And this year he gave away what did he give away, Kenny?
GT500.
Shelby GT500. And so that was specially designed just for Cruise for a Cause. So, and I'm sure he raised a lot of money. Dan, I haven't seen how much money you've raised on that. If you've announced that, put it in the comments, please. Anyway, great to have you back, Dan, and you do wonderful things, you and Linda. Let's see. I think that is it for today. So I think, again, if you want Kenny to talk, again, I want to talk about Christmas weekend and New Year's weekend. Kenny's going to be going through the top 10 tech tips of this year that he offered people. So if you have anything you think is valid for that, just give me a call or send it in. We have quite a few right now, Kenny, so we may already have our 10. Okay. And then you can evaluate and see if you want to add something else. Again, so join us Christmas weekend and New Year's weekend, and for Kenny's top 10 tips for 2021. I think that should be pretty good. So with that, we will.
Okay, what am I going to talk about next week? I don't know. You guys tell me what you want me to talk about next week. I mean, like today, all the topics came right from the questions from the Kenny Brown Speed Therapy Society private Facebook group. I got that all in. All the questions came from there. Well, except Ben's, he came from the Speed Therapy Academy. But let me know what you'd like me to talk about, any subjects, or send your questions in. I turn questions into subject as you see, like I did today. And I talk about what you want to know about. I mean, that's the whole purpose of this. is also to give you quality information. I tell people, the two worst places to get information about your car is the paddock and the internet. There's so much. That's why I started Cars and Coffee. I just got totally sick of all the misinformation that I saw out there, like on the forums and stuff. I gave up looking at those years ago because it just drives me crazy. How much bad information there was, and if you try to correct anybody, well, then that's just it turns into a pissing match because they know more than you do. So that's why I started Cars and Coffee. I got a lot of experience. I made a lot of mistakes, and the mistakes that I made, I can help you not to make. So with that, I think we will call it a day, unless a late question came in. And for everybody, we're going to have a pretty decent weekend here. The sun's shining, not too hot, not too cold. So it's kind of going to enjoy the day. It'd be a nice day to get a car out, but I got too much other things to do. So listen, thank you very much for joining. Again, I hope you learned something. And I'm here. I'm here for you guys. Let me know what you want me to talk about next week, and I'll create an episode that covers what you want to know about. So with that, have a good rest of your weekend, everybody. Glad you could join me. I'm really happy to see y'all, and especially all the people that come often. And don't forget, you can share this. You can hit some buttons and share this. So you can actually have a group, share a group on Facebook anyway. So please share this with your buddies. The more, the merrier. It'd be really nice if we could build up our people, our audience a little more. That always helps. So please find some more people to join me next Saturday. That's your job, okay? You got two jobs. One is to send me questions, so I have something to talk about, and the second is to get some of your friends to join us next Saturday morning. So with that, I'm going to leave you with your two jobs to do before next week. I'm going to see how you do on that. So have a good rest of your weekend. Bye, everybody.